Vitebsk, the main city in the Dvina River region of Belarus, my native city, the city where I live. Every time I return from long trips, I feel a heightened sense of tenderness and love for the city, a deep sympathy with its fate. Like many other ancient cities, Vitebsk has its own secret. It is found in the uniqueness of its landscape, the bends of the river, its ravines alternating with hills, in the mixed cultures and epochs of its architecture, in the bursts of energy that fired the creativity of its artists and poets. In Vitebsk there is a remarkable place. From here, on Assumption Hill, a panorama opens out of most of the lands beyond the Dvina River, as well as its near bank. The historical buildings of this ancient city harmoniously merge with the natural landscape, the river below the bluff, branches of old trees, and the receding horizon. A huge church once stood here, Assumption Cathedral, which was visible from far off. Originally intended as the main church of a Uniate monastery, it was later rededicated as the Orthodox Assumption Cathedral. In 1935, during an anti-religious campaign, the Assumption Cathedral was dynamited. Today, we see the beginnings of the great church's restoration. A unique architectural monument was erected in the 12th century when Vitebsk, then the second largest city in the Polotsk lands, became the center of an independent principality. This church, demolished in 1961, was restored from its ruins in our day and now delights us with its simple form and perfect proportions. In its first incarnation, the Annunciation Church was the only building in Eastern Europe with this particular system of brickwork walls. Rows of limestone slabs alternated with 2 or 3 rows of fine Byzantine bricks called plinths. The mystery of who built this church in Vitebsk has not been solved to this very day. The heart of Vitebsk is the Ratusha, or City Hall. It has seen a lot in its time. In 1597, Vitebsk received a Magdeburg Charter of Local Sovereignty, granted together with a coat of arms showing the head of the Savior, and beneath it, on an azure field, a bloody sword. Acting on their new privileges, in 1602, the townspeople built their city hall, or Ratusha, on this slope. The first building was wooden, with a bell and a tower, as well as storerooms and an arcade of shops. The square in front of it became a place of social life of the city for several centuries. The trembling substance of history hides in these ancient walls of churches and the city hall, and slumbers at the bottom of deep ravines. And when you touch it, you seem to guess its secret, but it again slips away. The silent centuries beg to speak. Many secrets were lost when Castle Hill, the most ancient part of Vitebsk, was destroyed at the end of the 19th century. The steep slopes of the hills are its natural defense. The nearness of the river, the abundance of wild game and birds, the impenetrable forests which in ancient times surrounded this place, attracted the first residents during the Stone Age, the Neolithic Age. In the early Iron Age, in the eastern part of Castle Hill, there was a little village belonging to Baltic peoples of the so-called Dnieper-Dvinsk culture. Their main activity was agriculture and cattle raising, as well as hunting, fishing, and various domestic handicrafts. They lived in large patriarchal families and built small villages with identical dwellings, long houses made out of posts with many rooms. The Balts believed in the mysterious power of fire and deified it as an element of the sun. They worshipped trees, willows and birches, and believed that in them lived 2 wonderful goddesses of creation and fertility. Balts were pagans, as were the Slavs, who began to settle these lands from the 5th to the 8th century. The Slavs lived with the Balts for many, many years, gradually assimilating them by the 12th century. 1.5 millennia ago, the Baltic lands in the Dvina River area were invaded by a mighty Slavic tribe called the Krivichi. A city gradually formed at the mouth of the Vitspa River, uniting several Krivichi settlements at the junction of two ancient commercial roads. One, the water route from north to south, and the other on dry land from west to east. In the summer of 974, the Russian Princess Olga, having defeated the Yatvigs and the Pechenegs, crossed the Dvina River and camped with her army. Admiring the hill, she built a wooden fortress here, and because of the river Vitpa, called it Vitebsk. She also built 2 stone churches. In the upper fort, St. Michael's, and in a lower fortress, she built the Assumption Church. Together with Olga, there appears the silhouette of still another princess, Predslava. In the opinion of some scholars, Predslava Polotskaya was a sovereign ruler who gained power over her lands a year earlier than the Kievan princess Olga. The name Predslava is mentioned in a Byzantine treaty with Russian princes in 946 AD. The visit of Olga on the territory of her neighbor could not have gone unnoticed. No battle was fought. The history books say nothing. That means that some meeting took place between Olga and Predslava. So who was the first prince of Vitebsk? In the chronicles of the Lithuanian Grand Dukes, we read, the Lithuanian Grand Duke Gediminas had 7 sons. The father gave Krevo to Olgerd, and furthermore, because the prince of Vitebsk had no sons, that prince gave his daughter to Olgerd and accepted him as a son-in-law. In 1318, the last independent Vitebsk prince, Yaroslav Vasilievich, gave his only daughter Maria in marriage to Prince Olgerd. 2 years later, after the death of the old prince, the city was inherited by his son-in-law Olgerd. Vitebsk and the Vitebsk Principality became part of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, and then eventually part of the Commonwealth of Poland and Lithuania. Olgerd spent almost all his time traveling. He was a warrior and bravely defended the land of Vitebsk. He was fated to become the Grand Duke of Lithuania, to battle German crusaders as well as Moscow's armies, to gain undying fame in the battle against the Tatars at the Battle of Blue Waters, and to push his state's borders all the way to Kiev and the Black Sea. He became the father of Yagylo, the future king of Poland, and the founder of the Jagiellonian dynasty. Matthew Kazimierz Strykovsky, in his marvelous chronicle, published in 1582, wrote, Olgerd fortified the upper castle with a stone wall and towers, and beautified that castle with palaces. Walls also grew around the nearby town, and it became known as the Lower Castle. The territory enclosed by these defenses grew considerably. In 1632, Vitebsk residents erected walls of earthwork around the hill, which became the third Vitebsk castle. In 1623, during a rebellion of Orthodox townspeople, the Uniate bishop Josephat Kuntsevich was murdered. The Polish army entered the city, escorting an official commission headed by the Grand Chancellor Lev Sapega. Acting under the authority of King Sigismund III, they condemned about 100 townspeople to death and executed 19, but the rest managed to escape. Vitebsk lost its Magdeburg rights of sovereignty and all accompanying privileges, which were returned only in 1644. The bells were removed from the city hall and from the Orthodox churches and remolded into one bell in honor of Kuntsevich. The city hall was demolished. I didn't like it. I had warned against it. Everyone is the reason for his own misfortune. But they broke the law, and I had to judge them with the full severity of the law. Life often buffeted Sapega's ideals as though testing their solidity. Life's hard lessons caused him spiritual suffering. Lev Sapega did not expect such an encounter with his homeland in his twilight years. his thoughts returned to his family estate Ostrovna, which is 15 miles from Vitebsk. Lev Sapega was chief editor of the Code of Laws of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, and he funded its publication. The Codex was printed in the official language of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, Belarusian, and for 200 years was considered one of the most perfect compilations of laws in Europe. In 1708, during the Northern War, Vitebsk residents supported the Swedish King Charles XII, which irritated Tsar Peter I. So he ordered that the town be burned. The city hall perished in the flames, along with many wooden churches and homes of the city. Only the part of the city on the other side of the river was saved by a ransom of 600 thalers. Here on this huge field, a great battle was fought at the beginning of the Napoleonic War of 1812. Napoleon decided to fight a general engagement near Vitebsk by forcing a march to destroy the Russians' First Western Army led by General Barclay de Tolly, and then to defeat General Bagration's Second Western Army when it would rush to the First Russian Army's assistance. But Napoleon did not achieve his goal. The French were detained, and the main force of the Russian First Western Army escaped from Vitebsk. In his memoirs, Napoleon often returned to Vitebsk. It was here he began his failed invasion of Russia. Vitebsk is the homeland of many famous people, scientists, writers, artists, politicians, and military leaders. Among those who made the city famous is Marc Chagall, the world-famous artist. During one of his visits to Vitebsk after traveling abroad, Marc met Bella Rosenfeld. From that early time to this very day, she, dressed in black or white, reigns in my pictures, lights my way to art. They were married on the 25th of June 1915, when the groom turned 25 and was already famous in Paris. He seemed to sense that he would soon have to leave his hometown. Chagall embraced Vitebsk as an inexhaustible resource, concentrated on it in his sketches, documents as he called them, of the furniture and surroundings of his home, the faces of his extended family. It was as though he knew that he would have to collect enough material to serve for his entire long life. The explosion of cultural and artistic development, known as the Vitebsk Renaissance, began in 1918 with Vitebsk City's unique and memorable first anniversary of the October Revolution. County and city officials headed preparations for the festivities, which they saw as very significant. Most of the work was done by members of the City and County Beautification Subcommittee. Along with Marc Chagall, who was in charge of artistic matters, were other artists who prepared drawings: S. Udovkin, D. Yakerson, and Korzin. On the evening of November 6, 1918, rockets went off in Vitebsk. Several gunshots were heard on Uspensky Hills, and sirens wailed in the factory. That was the signal for the beginning of the celebration. Thousands of workers and Red Army soldiers poured onto the streets and squares of the city in the evening. A grand parade, unique in the history of the city, began beneath a forest of flags, posters, and slogans. When the front parts of the parade were on the corner of the former Suvorovsky and Smolensky streets, the parade's endpoints, its rear parts still stood on the street near the train station. On Freedom Square, orators greeted every parade unit with slogans. Music and songs of the Workers' Revolution sounded over the city. The parade ended around 11 p.m. War approached the walls of Vitebsk on July 9, 1941. Retreating units of the Red Army abandoned the city on July 11th. The Nazi occupation began at that time and lasted nearly 3 years. And during those entire 1,083 days, the city fought on, writing into its history memorable pages of courage, invincible will, and military glory for Vitebsk citizens. The Nazi forces turned the city into a strong fortress. However, as a result of Operation Vitebsk-Orsha, the city was liberated by forces of the 43rd Army of the 1st Baltic Front and the 39th Army of the 3rd Belarusian Front. On June 26, 1944, a Vitebsk native native named Myasayedov raised the red flag of victory above the city. The liberators were met by only 118 residents. That was the number who registered on the day that the city was liberated. During the years when Vitebsk was occupied, 138,000 residents were murdered, tortured in concentration camps, or exiled to forced labor in Germany. Whole sections of the city and industrial units were destroyed. Architectural monuments were damaged or ruined. Only 7% of all the housing remained. Residents returning to their homes could not recognize the city. They made little paths to their homes out of blocks of brick rubble. Vasil Bykov, a renowned writer and a man of integrity, is a Belarusian author, hero of Soviet labor, and recipient of many international prizes. He was born in 1924 in the Ushatsky region of the Vitebsk area. He majored in sculpture at the Vitebsk Art Academy. His creative biography is usually considered to have begun with his stories written in 1951. His heroes are young soldiers and officers with tragic frontline fates. Vasil Bykov's powerful prose was years ahead of its time. In it one finds the experience of this man, a war veteran who lived through frontline battles. Later on, he wrote about guerrilla warfare and then collectivization. His strict honesty and uncompromising writing resulted in official criticism. He was accused of defaming the Soviet system, war heroes, and loyalty to the soldiers' code. But it is namely through Vasil Bykov's works that people have learned and will learn to know Belarus and its literature. He remains in the people's consciousness as an example of a truly honest man. Peter Mironovich Masherov, a prominent leader in government and Communist Party affairs, one of the organizers and leaders of the patriotic underground and guerrilla warfare in Belarus during World War II, a hero of the Soviet Union and a hero of socialist labor, was born into a peasant family on February 13th in the village of Shirki, now in the Seno region of the Vitebsk area of Belarus. In 1965, he was made the first secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Belarus and a member of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. He was awarded 7 Lenin Awards as well as several other medals. More than a quarter century has passed since the tragic death of Masherov in an automobile accident in 1980, but no Belarusian political figure since then has left such a notable legacy, nor achieved the popularity that did Peter Mironovich Masherov. All his life, Masherov was an avid hunter. Any time he found a little free time, he was off to the woods. He liked both borovik and podberyozovik mushrooms, although he didn't care to gather them himself. He could wander for hours along forest paths, admiring the birches and pines. He called them his girlfriends, and he would return with pleasant thoughts from the woods. It seemed that nature was a good influence on his moods. One of the outstanding features of his character was his gregariousness and humanism. He wrote in his diary, "I really like people. I am delighted by our people. The most wonderful, the most powerful element of our national riches and achievements is our people. Their souls respond to all their tasks, to all kinds of adversity." He was a modest person, but very demanding of himself. Poet, author, essayist, literary critic, and translator David Grigorievich Simonovich was born in 1932 in the city of Narovlia in the Gomel area. After graduating from Belarusian State University, he worked as a school teacher, then as an editor of the newspaper Vitebsk Worker and head of the Department of Television and Radio of the Vitebsk Area Executive Committee. He has been publishing since 1948. In 1971, he headed the Vitebsk Area Literary Union. David Simonovich is the author of 22 books. Besides poetry collections, he wrote the book Alexander Pushkin Relay and Through the Ends of Time, in which he tells of famous persons whose lives and creativity have touched Belarus. He has authored children's books, television dramas, and films. He He translates the works of Belarusian poets into Russian. Many of Simonovich's poems have been set to music. His insightful poetry, both romantic and social, leaves no one unmoved. Vasil Bykov once wrote to him the following: "By your life in sublime writing, you continue the many centuries of traditional friendship and mutual understanding between the Belarusian and Jewish people." This poet is well known as the chair of the Chagall Committee, the leader and organizer of the Pushkin celebrations and the Karatkevich literary days in Vitebsk. Famous in Belarus, Svetlana Okruznaya is an actress of the Yakub Kolos National Dramatic Theater, known not only in her own country, but far beyond its borders. She has acted in more than 60 roles in the Yakub Kolos stage, playing lyrical, dramatic, comedy, and character roles. Among them was Anyutka in Tolstoy's play The Power of Darkness, Nellie in an adaptation of Dostoevsky's novel The Insulted and Injured, Tanya in Vampilov's June Farewell, Olga in Kazantsev's Old House, and many others. Her main roles in film include Second Autumn, The Intimidated Apostle, and Quail's Cry. For her signal contributions to the development of the dramatic arts and for her high level of professionalism, Svetlana Okruznaya was awarded the Francisco Skorin Medal and Award. She was also given the nation's highest theatric award, the Crystal Peacock. Okruznaya also received the prize Spiritual Renaissance and the Tusno Lubovaya Marchenko Area Prize for Maternal Courage. She was the only person in our republic in 2005 to be named a winner of the International Peace Prize, the highest award of the United Cultural Convention of the USA, sponsored by the American Biographical Institute, which a year earlier named her Woman of the Year. She was also named Woman of the Year in 1997-98 in the publication The 2000 Most Famous People in the World and in the Cambridge Academic Center. The clock in the ancient city hall shows the time, counting the minutes, the days, the years, and the centuries. It remembers faces and the deeds of those who affected the face of Vitebsk in the past. It remembers and perhaps will tell our descendants who is doing that today.